Good morning. It is July 16th of 2021. It is Friday. Um, Today I went to my grandma's celebration of life, um, and it was pretty awesome. Um, it's before I went, there wasn't much sadness. Um, in my mind, I was happy to see her go and see Jesus. Because we have a hope, and we shared the same hope in seeing Jesus when we pass from this life to the other. And she was able to go, and so uh, very little tears shed prior to getting there. But as I got to the service, um, during the service, I was profoundly hit with the reality of how my grandma affected my life in a way that wasn't, she didn't go out of her way to do a bunch of crazy stuff for me. She didn't give me a bunch of stuff. She didn't do the big things, but she did all the little things in my life that mattered, in a profound way. She was a faith leader in my life, and it all hit me like a ton of bricks. Sorry, I hope I can get through this. So I just want to tell some stories on my grandma and the effect that she had on my life. Because she was always talking about God and the Lord. She was anything related to the Lord. From everything I can remember, she would always talk about the Lord. And so, sorry, to get my thoughts together. So if you had watched any of my death to self, or any of my, not my death to self videos, but my testimony videos, I went through my conversion and my testimony, and so I'm going to go through a little bit of them again. So when I accepted Christ, it was a random thought while I was cooking meth, sitting on a porch, thinking that if I ever went to jail, I was going to find out who Jesus was and who God was. And I can tell you now that the only reason why I even knew there was a God, it wasn't because we claimed to be Christians in my family. It was because my grandma always talked about the Lord. And I had no idea who the Lord was. I claimed to be a Christian, but I had no idea. And I remember at the age of 21, just turning 21, sitting on a porch, realizing that I needed to figure out who this God was that my grandma had. And so when I went in and I accepted Jesus, 2 weeks later I got arrested, and I accepted Jesus. I spent a year in jail, read through the Bible and all that. And so when I got out, the only person I knew that went to church, obviously, was my grandma. And she went to church at the Assemblies of God in LaSalle. And so that was the first church I remember ever going to. It was the church that I got baptized in. It was the church that my family started going to church in. After my conversion, anyways, I'm assuming my family went to church prior to that, when they were younger. But and I remember just her being a part of my Sunday in my original growth in Christ. And then I relapsed a couple years later, ended up getting a 16-year prison sentence. And I just remember, so when I got arrested, so the church, this Bible that I've had for, 14 years, I got that Bible from the Assembly of God Church in LaSalle. My mom and my grandma both, the pastor there, they mailed it to me, and that's been my Bible. So there's just been, that was the beginning of my faith walk, and my Christian walk was profoundly impacted by her. While I was in prison, I would get a letter once a month, maybe once every 2 months. And I didn't know really how to write back to my grandma. I mean, I just feel bad because I was so selfish, and not really selfish, just was horrible at writing. I hated writing letters, didn't have nothing to talk about. I just felt like, and I just didn't have that, I don't know, whatever. But she was always faithful to write me in all her letters. I think are sitting at my mom's. Were about trusting God and her faith walk and the Lord. And she was a pillar of what being a Christian is supposed to be. And obviously, as a young man, my grandma was an old lady, and so it was, I always felt like I want the faith of my grandma. God, Lord, when I just pray that I grow into that I lose the lust of this world, and that I can have the faith of my grandma. And so, I mean, she'd come and visit me while I was in prison or in jail or wherever I was when I was just a wreck. And she'd always speak hope and speak life into me. And I can imagine that she was continuously praying for me. So, and I got out of prison, and I went and visited a few times. I loved my grandma. I got to see her during Christmas reunions, whatever you want to call it, the Christmas family dinners. And then I went and visited her a couple of times. She went to an old folks home. And after Aunt Zella, her sister, passed away, and she just, she was ready to go after that. But, every time I seen her, she was very much just ready to go see the Lord. And it's, listening through the service yesterday, it was very clear that she had led a life of being a Jesus follower and loving people and leading them to the Lord, not in some crazy, profound way. Like, she was just a quiet, small voice speaking truth about the God that had changed her life and given her a hope. As I read through her Bible yesterday after the service, it's a lot of the highlighted stuff was about the second coming. She was, I believe, looking for Jesus and waiting for him, and just looking for the second coming. And but outside of that, I just her love was deep, and her way of life, her walk, was one that is for me to be admired. She didn't have, I've gotten asked a couple times, through my discipleships or through Bible studies, what you believe your legacy is. What would they say about you at your funeral? And what would you want them to say? And that was something that kept rolling over in my head and my mind yesterday, that she had a legacy that I want, a legacy of loving God deeply and passionately, serving her Lord, and one that was very clear to everyone who knew her, and that she loved others equally, or not equally, but she loved others in a way that showed her love for God, and that it wasn't a legacy of accomplishments. She didn't have big accomplishments of, for me, I sit there and think, I'm like, I don't want to be known for being a really good electrician. I don't want to be known for being a good business owner. I don't want to be known because I'm good at things, or that I had a lot of things. I would like to be known like my grandma, be known that I love Jesus so much that it poured out of me in the loving of others and serving others. Um, I really very much want to be like my grandma. And she became a role model to me yesterday. And if there was anything that I wanted to tell her, I didn't go see her on her on deathbed because, honestly, I was just happy she was getting to go and her memory was fading. But, after the service, I really felt like I wish I could have went and seen her, and I wish I'd have known um, the feeling that I would have had and the revelation that I would have had in her service prior, so that I could have told her how much I appreciate her walk with the Lord, as it profoundly affected my life. And her prayers have also changed my life, as she's been a faithful prayer warrior, praying for me just like my mom. And I'm just so grateful to God for putting her in my life. And I'm so glad that she's with him now. And she passed the torch, and I hope to carry it. So I'll end with this. Matthew 25:14 through 23. For it is just like a man about to go on a journey, who called his own slaves and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability. And he went on his journey. Immediately the one who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them, and gained 5 more talents. In the same manner, the one who had received the 2 talents gained 2 more. But he who received the 1 talent went away and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The one who had received the 5 talents came up and brought 5 more talents, saying, Master, you entrusted 5 talents to me. See, I have gained 5 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Also, the one who had received the 2 talents came up and said, Master, you have entrusted 2 talents to me. See, I have gained 2 more talents. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master. Some versions said, enter into the joy of your Lord. It's all, depends on the version you're reading. And I believe that my grandma had some talents, and she did well with her talents. And I am one of the multiplication. I believe that I'm very much one of the talents that she produced another talent with. And I just hope to be the same faithful servant that she was, as she sits in heaven right now at the right hand or at the feet of Jesus, being a faithful and good servant to him. And she did good. And I'm so grateful that she was in my life. And I'm grateful for all of the prayers that have been fulfilled from her in my life. And I'm sure will continue to be fulfilled, as the Lord is great to answer and faithful to answer prayers of a faithful woman. And I'm glad she was praying for me. And I'll leave it at that. Love you, Grandma.